Once again, thanks for jumping on board the ASX Market Goss podcast. For no more than 30 minutes, we dig a little deeper with ASX listed small cap companies, their focus, the future, the highs, the lows, and what's next. A part of the conversation is to get to know our guests at a personal level, their experiences, mentors, slips and slides, even down possibly to their coffee of choice, and life away from the share price and investment decision making. Our guest today on the podcast is Adrian Griffin, a Charge of Metals non-executive director. Adrian, thanks for coming in and appreciate your time.
Pleasure, Tim.
Are you comfortable in this environment?
Oh, it's a little bit tight. I'm referring to the studio, of course, but yeah, look, mining's been my lifeblood.
Yeah, 100%. And do you still, you're obviously, as you say, you've been around this industry for a while, but are you still learning?
Oh, of course I am, yeah. Yeah, we were lucky enough to pick the lithium boom almost before it started. So we've been there for about 10 years and we learn every single day. Fortunately, we know a little bit more than most of our competitors.
Yeah, huge. And that places you at the front and centre of it. Of course, described as an emerging explorer focused lithium and battery metals in WA, the Northern Territory. Is that a correct summation?
Yeah, it is. Most of our focus is lithium, and we've got two very strong lithium projects in the portfolio.
You're a massive advocate for zero carbon. You have been for a while.
I certainly have, yeah.
How are we tracking?
Oh, not very well. And I think, quite frankly, the lithium industry has a lot to live up to and a lot of problems to fix. I shouldn't get bogged down on that because I have some very, very solid views. But you know, if you have a look at sustainability within the industry, it doesn't have a good track record. And there are technical solutions to that, and we've simply got to implement it. Some companies are working towards it, and good on them. It's just got to be done. 2050, I think, the federal government several years ago talked about zero emissions and the likes. And you talk about we're not doing very well. If you were to crystal ball how far that 2050 would be hopefully achievable, but if you were right now to say where we're going to be at, what year would you put it at, the way we're tracking? Oh, I'd put it 10 or 15 years later than that. And really what we've got to do is get the carbon footprint down at the start of the process. You know, it's fine looking at EVs and comparing them with internal combustion engines and all that sort of thing. But really we've got to go back to the minerals that are in the ground, how we get them out, and how can we do that and process those with a low carbon footprint. And that's the trick. And we haven't really even begun the journey.
When did, for the want of a better saying, when did the penny drop for you that we needed to do something in this space?
Well, it's interesting because when we got involved in the lithium industry, as I say, it's about 10 years ago, what we did was look at lithium deportment around the world, see where it was coming from and where it was going to. And the conclusion that we came to was more than 50% of it wasn't getting into the supply chain, it was going into waste streams. Of course, that immediately doubles your carbon footprint. So we looked at that problem and said, well, what does it need to fix the problem? And the answer was better processing technology. And as Lithium Australia at the time, which is, of course, the largest shareholder in Charger, and indeed the company that found the assets in the first place, as Lithium Australia, we looked at that problem and started developing processing technology to get around the problem.
With that said, I'm interested by your experience in mining and the lithium, nickel sectors, all that sort of fun. I want to talk about Bino Lithium and Lake Johnston project as well coming up. I just want to know, when you're a boy growing up, was mining always going to be it? What was your passion?
It really was. It's a bloody good question, but from the time I was about knee-high to a grasshopper, I used to spend all my vacations at school on the Victorian goldfields, crawling through all the old mine workings to try and figure out how the hell the guys did what they did. And it just never left me.
So what were your mates doing while you were doing that?
Well, it was the days before PCs and what have you, and there weren't video games. I guess I was sitting at home reading books.
I bought myself a metal detector, and I thought it was the ants' pants. And I used to go down to the beach and scan over it. I had that aspiration of finding my wealth, probably down at Cottesloe Beach or North. God, did you ever go down that line, metal detectors?
Yeah, I did, and may I say, not very successfully. So we've got something in common, Tim.
Tell me what a pegmatite is.
Oh, pegmatite, it's the last gasp when it comes to granitic intrusions. Granites, they start off as molten rock, rising towards the surface. They slowly solidify, and then a lot of the volatile materials, which includes lithium, water, potassium, the light metals and the like, they get concentrated in the very last stages of the magma. And if that magma chamber then breaches through a fracture in the rock, those last gasps get penetrated into the country rock and they crystallise as pegmatites. Generally coarse grain with a really weird assemblage of minerals. You get tin, tantalum, tungsten, you get a bit of uranium, thorium, rare earths, and of course, today, lots and lots of lithium.
And that's the space you're in. We're chatting, of course, with CHRs. That's the ASX code, of course. Charger Metals Non-Executive Director Adrian Griffin. I'm intrigued by spent battery collection. I know that's, again, did you start it?
Well,
you're one of.
I've got to put a Lithium Australia hat on here, so we've got to be careful that we don't confuse the two companies. But we had a look at recycling batteries inside Lithium Australia, and came to the conclusion there were lots of companies saying they did it, but most of them were collecting them and exporting a problem. There was one company that was actually processing in Australia, so we took it over, and until today, we remain, as Lithium Australia, the only recycler of lithium-ion batteries in Australia. Okay,
so again, you're talking to me, but we've got a lot of people who are listening right here, right now, that want to know why. Why are we recycling batteries? And to what extreme are we talking? What batteries? Is it when I go to Officeworks and I see, you can throw your spare batteries in there? Is that how small we're talking? And then we're talking...
right down to button cells. We take everything. But why are we doing it? And I think it gets back to this philosophy of sustainability and the fact that we started looking at sustainability of the raw materials. Was there a better way to do it? Can you get a better yield out of the ore deposits? And the answer, of course, was yes. But then when you put those into a battery and that battery gets to end of life, you've got the same problem. You don't want to treat that as a spent commodity and throw it away. And unfortunately, that's what we do, with only about 8 to 10% of those batteries in Australia at the moment being recycled. Now, we can't afford to have a throwaway society and continue to waste those resources and then have to pay for new ones. So the best thing to do is recycle them.
Okay, well, explain to me how the recycling process...
Oh, that's works. A secret, Tim. No, it's not. Really, the crux of it is collecting batteries. And if you can't collect batteries, of course, you haven't got a recycling business. So we've got a fairly extensive collection network within, again, Lithium Australia, not within Charger, an extensive collection network. And then we sort those batteries, shred them, separate the components, and then put the components back into the battery industry.
That sounds like a really deep, hard process.
Well, when we got into it, I said, gee, that's easy. I was proved to be wrong. It is quite difficult, which is why we don't have a lot of competition in the marketplace.
So people listening right now who chuck any batteries in the bottom of their bin, changing the car batteries, whatever it may be, are you imploring for them to make a difference?
Oh, indeed, I am, yeah. I am.
So don't be flippant about it.
No, and go and find where your local recycling centre, for want of a better word, is, where that bin is that you can dump your batteries. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of them. Go to places like Bunnings and Officeworks, Battery World. So when you get rid of your batteries, or indeed when you go and buy a new one, most of the places where you buy a new one have got bins to recycle the old ones.
Are we doing it enough? Have you seen an increase as we start to be a little bit more community-minded and a bit more aware of our planet that we're living in? From your vantage point, are you seeing a change in our habits?
Yeah, well, indeed we are. And most people are completely unaware of the fact that there was a battery stewardship scheme introduced into Australia January of last year. So it's been going for about 12 months, a bit over 12 months. And what that scheme does is it charges a levy on the battery at the point of purchase. So when you buy a battery, you don't even notice it because the levy on a AAA battery or a AA battery is about 4 cents. And it's built into the price. That 4 cents goes back to the Battery Stewardship Council. And then the Battery Stewardship Council, gee, that's hard to say.
Yeah, it is hard.
The Battery Stewardship Council, see, I got it right.
Don't overthink it.
Not that hard at all. So the council collects that money and then distributes amongst the parties that are certified collectors, sorters and recyclers. So effectively it subsidises that recycling cost.
Massive education. Knew nothing about that. It's fantastic when you've got you in to talk about this. What's happening now over west of Norseman, Lake Johnston project? What's happening out there?
Oh, thank God for that. You've got back on track and we're back to Charger where we should have started.
No, we're crossing all paths.
Well, I guess when we started Charger, which is now about 18 months or so ago, and we looked at the assets that were in Lithium Australia, exploration assets, and Lithium, of course, Lithium Australia had gone high tech. So we got the portfolio, stripped it right down and said, where are the best of the targets? And with respect to lithium, there were two standout targets. One of them was Lake Johnson, the other one's Bino up near Darwin. So Lake Johnson had outcropping lithium pegmatites, and you don't see too many of those, so we had a stand-up target. And I'd like your listeners to know we haven't actually been sitting on our hands for 18 months. One of the great problems that the industry has at the moment, and really has for a long period of time, is permitting and the time it takes. So we floated. It took us over 12 months to get the permits in place so we could start drilling, and we commenced drilling there in December of last year. We have intersected, not surprisingly, below outcrop those lithium-bearing pegmatites. They're quite abundant. They're thin, unfortunately, but occupy a large mass of the total rock. So if you look at it in terms of perhaps digging a hole and say, well, how much in that hole is lithium pegmatites? It's probably 15 to 20%. So on a percentage basis, it doesn't look too bad. The pegmatites themselves range in thickness from sort of 1, 2 through to about 5 metres in most cases. In a few locations, they coalesce and get up to 13, 14 metres. And as we drill to the north, they seem to be thickening up. We do have plans of putting in some deeper holes at the moment. I can't recall exactly how many holes we're permitted for, but we've drilled about 35 of the holes, maximum depth about 250 metres. But we do want to step back from that and drill some significantly deeper holes as well.
To our listeners who are listening to this podcast right now, and we're talking, of course, to Adrian Griffin about Charger, Lake Johnson and Bino, and I use the quotation, little words, exclamation points, of course, surrounded by momentum and success.
Oh, well, yeah, I think Lake Johnson certainly is, and it's not far from those large discoveries at Earl Grey, which are coming into production, and of course will support local refining capacity. So it's not only a mining operation, but downstream refining. So we're in a greenstone belt that is parallel to that and just to the east. In the case of Bino in Northern Territory, we're completely surrounded by Core Lithium, who are now operating. And of course, Core has expanded the success of that operation to such an extent that they're now a $2 billion company based on pegmatites that surround ours and strike into the ground that we've got. And in fact, if you have a look at that ground, it's pretty interesting. When I say that ground, I'm talking about the Charger ground. We've got a number of walk-up targets there, and they have very significant lithium anomalies on them, and that in itself is quite remarkable for that part of the world, because you've got a tropical weathering horizon. the lithium weathers out of the spodumene and other lithium minerals, and it's very, very soluble and it gets flushed out. And you normally don't see strong lithium anomalies, but we have some absolute rippers there. And believe me, they're not small. And there's 7 Up, which has got a strike length in the anomaly of about 700 metres, a width of about up to 100. And pegmatites dotted along bits and pieces of it. There'll certainly be something underneath those lithium anomalies. Then there's megabucks, and I have to say we didn't name that, by the way.
I like megabucks. It sounds like I should be involved in this.
An historic name. I've got no idea where it came from, but you'll notice I do wear the megabucks tie.
You do have a megabucks tie on.
Yeah. So megabucks has got a strike length of about 800 metres. It's been subjected to historic trenching. It's a pegmatite that looks like it's relatively continuous. A bit hard to tell because it's pretty shitty exposure in trenching, but continuous over about 750, 800 metres, something like that, and a width of about 75 metres. And the anomaly that surrounds that is twice that length. So that looks like a terrific target. And then there's Old Bucks, which is similar sort of size. It's a geochemical anomaly about 800 metres long and about 500 metres wide.
So you're giving great hope to people who are listening to this podcast who want to maybe work their way into Charger and maybe have a play. Of course, the ASX code is CHR. Are you giving... what time frame are we talking about? It seems there'll be an incredible amount of positivity in your voice.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm really bullish about this. But again, if you get back to time frames, permitting in Northern Territory has been one of our issues. We've got all the permits in place, and such is the Northern Territory, it started to rain. And that's in fact why we've been drilling down at Lake Johnson. We're not susceptible to the weather down there. But we're keeping a very good eye on the weather, and it looks like it's starting to dry up, and we're hopeful that we'll get on that ground in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
And you're giving hope to those who are listening now that that the results are going to be as...
Oh, too right I am. I'm 100% confident.
You've been around the block a few times. So
I have.
Have you ever got it wrong?
No, never, Tim.
Let's delve into a couple of little personal questions, if you don't mind, if you feel comfortable. Talking to Adrian Griffin, of course, the non-executive director of Charger. CHR is the code, and all in the space of lithium, and as I mentioned, a great advocate for zero carbon, and we've spoken about the spent battery collection and recycling. But I want to talk to you about your coffee of choice. What's your coffee of choice?
I'm a cappuccino man.
Cappuccino man? No problems with that?
No, not at all.
Do you have sugar in your cappuccino?
No, I don't. And when it comes to red wine, there are two, wine in general.
Yes.
2 great rules to remember.
Yes.
Wine only comes in one colour, and life's too short to drink Merlot. Now, if you abide by both of those rules, you're not going to go too far wrong. And I love the odd drop of Shiraz.
Okay, nice work. Look at you, just going forward in your own segues. I love it. When you wake up and you're ready to go to work and you're prepared to go and you're about to go out of the office, or even you don't even have to get to the office, what's the first work-related task you do every day in your role?
The first thing I do is check the markets and see what everyone else that thinks they're a competitor in the lithium industry has been doing overnight.
That seems to be a very strong theme when people wake up. They hit the markets and what's taking place. What time do you rise?
Generally about 5:30, but often I'll get up in the middle of the night and check the US markets to see how they're going when there are a few things on.
You need more sleep. Are you a reader?
Unfortunately, I love reading, but one never gets time to read anything apart from technical documents.
Yeah.
And the odd legal document.
Yeah. What about things like, do you take in TV series, media series? What?
Oh, I love Netflix. They have such good serials on.
So
yeah.
What's your favourite? What's been your favourite?
Oh, look, I sit down with my wife most nights and watch some of these things, and she has a great passion. So the channel selection, so to speak, gets driven by her to a large extent. But Most of it's crime.
Yeah. I give my wife and daughter a massive on crime. They wait till I go to bed, and then you can hear it unfolding right there. They're up till all hours. Have you got the work-life balance right?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And to a large extent, that was a driving force behind me stepping down as Managing Director of Lithium Australia, because I've been there for 10 years, got all the assets in there, got the technology moving. It was time to start commercialising those technologies. And really, I just needed, not exactly a break, but needed to get away from the mundane aspects of corporate management. So I stepped down as managing director. I still hold a strong role there, an advisory role of the company. So I'm still involved, but I don't have to worry about the employees and raising money and what have you on a day-to-day basis, which is...
Are you better for that? You better for that?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
In downtime, you talk about watching Netflix and the likes, but what other downtime? What fun do you have?
Oh, I do a little bit of gardening. In our place is like a zoo. We've got plenty of animals at the moment. I think it's 2 dogs, 3 cats, 2 parrots, and the parrots rule the roost. Believe me, they're
2 dogs, 3 cats. Exactly the same. No birds.
Yeah, well, the birds are quite amusing because all the other animals have been bitten by the birds. They know to stay away from them. So those things occupy most of the time. During footy season, I'm a great AFL supporter.
Of?
Western Bulldogs.
Okay. When you flagged a handful of years ago, which was nice.
2016, yeah. So
it came from nowhere. Time to bounce back.
I had to wait 60 years for that, of course.
Yeah, you did. Hey, they need to. They got a strike now too. They've got a good enough list.
They have, yeah. They certainly have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Hey, where do you see Charger in? We talked about, you talked about the rain up north, of course. There at Bino and Lake Johnson seems to be going ahead in leaps and bounds. And you're excited. I'm hearing the excitement in your voice, Adrian. But where do you see Charger maybe in a time frame of 12, 24 months?
Well, I think what you can say about the industry is, as we stand today, in Australia, there are only 14 JORC resources for lithium. And they're all in pegmatites, of course. Lithium occurs in other things, but in Western Australia, all those resources are in pegmatites. And I think if you look at the performance of the companies that have succeeded in publishing those 14 resources, what you can say is really all you need is one good pegmatite. And I think we've got the making of that. We've got the anomalies. We've got the outcrops. We've got a terrific exploration crew. And as I mentioned earlier in this piece, we've been at it in one form or another for about 10 years. So we've developed a lot of expertise. So I think we can do that a little bit better than others. So if those pegmatites that are company makers are sitting there, we're going to find them.
Your confidence is enlightening. And your knowledge, of course, is second to none. Appreciate you coming in on the ASX market, Goss, as one of our first guests, Adrian Griffin, non-executive director of Charger. Pitch. You've got 30 seconds to pitch for Charger right here. Do you need to pitch?
Oh, now's the time to buy. Need I say any more?
You do not. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Tim.
Appreciate it. There it is. Our guest on, of course, ASX Market Goss, Adrian Griffin from Charger. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Adrian Griffin from Charger Metals. In our next edition of ASX Market Goss, I'll be providing you with another rare insight into an executive leading one of the companies you might be invested in to get the goss on what makes them tick and why they do what they do. And don't forget, you can follow us on a number of platforms. ASX Market Goss on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and rss.com. Don't forget, leave a comment, like us, follow us, give us your feedback.
The content of this podcast is intended to be general in nature and is not personal financial product advice. It does not address the circumstances of any individual or entity. You should not construe any of this information or other part of the material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other professional advice. ASX Market Goss and its employees are not financial advisors. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, taxation, or other advice to check how any information relates to your unique circumstances. Nothing contained in this podcast constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by ASX Market Goss or any third party to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments in this or any other jurisdiction, in which such solicitation or offer would be unlawful under the securities laws of such jurisdiction.